and Kufman Ches. That's 148b. From Chesam Abez, Mechiner of Pesach. See what that is, Mechiner of Pesach. It's about 15 lines up, towards the end of the line. So it says Mechiner of Pesach. If someone needed an animal and it was Erev Pesach, so he was allowed to get it from, I guess, his friend or from the store. He would leave his talus there and he would take the Korban Pesach. That's how he would get it. And afterwards he would go pay for it. When it says, Rabbi Yochanan says, Makdash Adam Pischai b'Shabbos v'chagigasi b'Yom-Tov. A person can sanctify his Korban Pesach. He's supposed to do it on Erev Pesach, right, on the 14th. So let's say the 14th is Shabbos. So he's allowed to sanctify the Korban Pesach on Shabbos. Normally you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to sanctify sacrifices on Shabbos. So we'll see soon. And he can sanctify the Korban Chagiga on Yom Tov. The Korban Chagiga was brought on the first day, on the 15th. Gemara says, name him Eily. Oh, our Mishnah is a proof. It says, V'chein Erev Pesach, Yerushalayim, Shechalis b'Shabbos Menichtia, Talis Esle V'nekles Pesach V'esim Mechesh Menach Yom Tov. Rabbi Yochanan's right. We have a support from our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says that if a person forgot to sanctify, or to acquire his Korban Pesach before Shabbos, he can go to an owner of animals and get one. That means he's sanctifying it on Shabbos. Rabbi Yochanan's right. It's a proof from our Mishnah. Gemara says not necessarily. The Mishnah is not necessarily a proof. It could be that the animal that we're dealing with in the Mishnah was already a sanctified animal. And this fellow is not really acquiring a brand new animal. He's just joining in with someone else. Now he's going to have to pay his part, but the Korban Pesach was not an individual sacrifice. It was a group that brought it. People were joined together into a group. Now, this person is joining on Pesach into a group. The animal was already sanctified. So what comes out is that Rabbi Yochanan says you're allowed to sanctify, but the Mishnah wasn't talking about sanctifying. The Mishnah was talking about buying your portion of the Korban Pesach that you can do on Shabbos. Where it says, but 1 second. But you're not allowed to make the guest list, the list of who's joining. You can't do that on Yom Tov. You just have to do that beforehand. They're talking about it's doing it on Shabbos. Where it says, well, this is the type of group that they always do everything together. This is a frequent guest. So they always do things together. He always comes over every Shabbos, every Yom Tov. So that's considered like it was already made up from beforehand. But Tani Rabbi says, Rabbi says a person go to a shepherd and he can take a sheep and he can sanctify him. See, it's much more than what you were saying. Gemara was saying that what's he doing on Yom Tov or on Shabbos? He's only joining into a sheep that was already a Korban Pesach. Now we're saying that according to Rabbi, that you're allowed to go and you're allowed to go to a shepherd, get a brand new sheep and sanctify it, consecrate it, so that you should be able to have a Korban Pesach, and you're doing this on Shabbos. Where it says, okay, this is an interesting answer. It says the shepherd that has all these sheep is expecting this person to come, so he already sanctified it for him. So it's no raya to Rabbi Yochanan that you're allowed to sanctify it on Shabbos. Where it says 1 second, B'makdish Ktani. it says clearly that he sanctifies it. What are you saying that the shepherd sanctified it from before? There's an issue of sanctifying an animal that you don't have in your possession. That's an issue. But here, the shepherd, I guess, owns the animal. The other person's going to come and buy it from him. So he's buying a sanctified animal. It says, but he sanctified it. It means the person buys it and sanctifies it. It says, this is a very interesting point. When he sanctifies it, it's just a rabbinic sort of additional sanctity that he's adding onto it. The animal was already consecrated by the shepherd, and it was consecrated before the holiday, before Shabbos. This person comes along, he doesn't have any animals, so he goes to the shepherd. The shepherd says, "Yeah, I had one in mind for you. I consecrated it already. This is your animal." So he takes it and he adds sanctity to it. He says again that it's consecrated, even though it wasn't really necessary. It's just a midrabanan sanctity that he adds to it. Question is, how do you add sanctity to sanctity? It was already there. What is he doing? Apparently there's some additional benefit when the owner does it. There's something there. We had something about this. We had this before. I don't know if it was in Bechiris. We had something like this. So, I forget. Okay. Does Rabbi Yochanan say that you're allowed to consecrate on Yom Tov, on Shabbos, and on Yom Tov? Rabbi Yochanan, halacha kastam Mishnah. Rabbi Yochanan always gets in trouble with this. He says the halacha is like a stam Mishnah, that any anonymous Mishnah is the halacha. I assume what he means to say is that the way Rabbi Yehuda Nasi arranged the Mishnayos, he put into it a code to know when he wants to paskin, when he wants to say that the halacha is like which opinion. So the code that was put into it, Rabbi Yochanan tells us, is that if there's an anonymous opinion, that's the halacha. Now, that being the case, every anonymous opinion is now the halacha. So that comes back, and every time Rabbi Yochanan has a statement, we say, 1 second, we found an anonymous opinion in a Mishnah that contradicts that statement. What is the anonymous opinion? Ritzanan, Olei Makdishin, Olei Ma'arichin, Olei Machrimin, Olei Magbiyan Shumas Maisis, Kalei L'Biyam Tov Amru Kal V'Chim B'Shabbos. You're not allowed to sanctify, consecrate the animals. You're not allowed to do the donations of a person's value, which is based on his age. You can't consecrate other things for Kayan and for the basic English. You can't remove Shumas and Meisers on Yom Tov, and for sure on Shabbos you're not allowed to. Rabbi Yochanan just said you are allowed to. So he contradicted himself. If he doesn't pass like the Mishnah, fine, but he said the halacha is like a stam Mishnah. It says like kasha. We have a very simple answer. The answer is like this. If it's Pesach and you need an animal, you're allowed to consecrate it. I can't go and consecrate other animals, donations, and other things that I have in mind. I'm going to take care of all of those things, all of those pledges. That I am not allowed to do on Shabbos or Yom Tov. But if it happens to be Pesach and it's Shabbos and I didn't do it, then I'm allowed to do it. So it's Kvul Zman. If it has a designated time and now it's the time, that I'm allowed to do. Okay. It says, Meina Adam es Archav es Parparesav Mipiv Avalemen Aksav. Someone has a lot of guests. He has a guest list. So, who's coming to the meal? So he has a list of people that are coming to the meal. This happens a lot, especially over 2-3 days Yom Tov. You have to keep track, or else the wrong family shows up. Then you get into big trouble. So you're supposed to come tomorrow. So when you're counting the list, because you have to figure out the seating, you have to figure out the portions and all of this, you're not allowed to read the guest list from the paper. Not allowed to read it from the paper. We'll see in the Gemara why. Two possibilities. You might cross one out if you don't have enough food. The other one is maybe if you start reading these documents, you may end up start looking at all your business contracts. You start reading all your other documents. So the guest list is sort of like close to other contracts, other documents that you have. It's called Shtarei Hadyetis. We'll see. Mafes Adam in Banavim b'nei Beisai ala Shulchan u'Bavad shalei yiskav nasis mana gedela keneged mana ketana. This part of the Mishnah is going to get amended. I don't think it's going to work out to be exactly like this. But what the Mishnah says is that a person can make a lottery at this table amongst his children who gets which piece, as long as the pieces are all the same size. See, the kids will fight over the pieces that are the same size also. It's not just his is bigger. They'll imagine his is bigger and all of that. No, I want that one. So you can make a lottery. It's like pick a number, or you give them something, pull out a name. As long as they're the same size. How they get them to be the same size? They told these two yeshiva bachrim that would fight over the cake. It says one of you will cut it in half, but the other one's going to get to choose which piece he wants. So that's how they make sure it's exactly the same size. Then umatilim chalashim alakadshim b'yamtiv havalay alamanis. Okay, also the Gemara is going to adjust this exactly what it means. It's for now. Chalashim means a lottery. You can make a lottery for the kadshim, the sacrifices, on the holidays, but not on the portions. And we'll see what that means. The Gemara is going to have to explain it. Okay, we start off with this discussion about reading from a guest list. You're not allowed to read from the guest list. My timer. What's the reason? What's wrong with the guest list? We have two opinions. We have Rabbi and we have Abaya. There was a Rabbi bar Abaya also. So I don't know if it's the son. Rabbi Amar Gzer Shem Yimchik. Rabbi says there's a problem you might erase. You might erase seeing that you don't have enough food. Rashi says he will tell the shamas that don't go get that person to come to the meal. I guess they would invite him right then. And he had in mind who he would invite. He would take one off, so he would have enough food. Abaya says, well, if we allow you to read guest lists, you're going to start to read business contracts. My binayu, what's the difference between these two opinions? You're not allowed to read from a guest list. You're not allowed to read business contracts either. You're not allowed to erase. So what's the difference? What's the reason for the guest list? Either way, you can't read it. Gemara says it could be binayu the kasav akaisalu midli. Well, depends what the reason is. If you write it on a wall, or you write it and you hang it on the wall, and it's very high up. So, if what you're reading from up there on the wall, if the concern is that you're going to erase one, well, you can't reach it. And you can't erase it. But according to the one that holds that, you might end up reading other documents. So I know you can't erase that, but so what? You're going to start pulling out other documents, and you'll start reading from those documents.
I thought the reason that Abaye said that he'll start reading business documents because he might have his guest list in like a drawer and everything. And when he'll take it out, he'll see more papers under. But it's on a high wall. What is he going to do? He's going to go, oh, now that reminds me of a business.
Very interesting.
Doesn't work.
That could be the pshat. Yossi, that could be the pshat and what the Gemara is going to say. I didn't understand it like that, but that could be the pshat. We'll see. We'll see soon. Okay, that's a good point. Yossi's saying that maybe the guest list was together with his other documents. So if we let you read the guest list, you'll start to look through, oh, what else do I have here? But if it's on a wall, then maybe not. But the Gemara right here doesn't have that point. The Gemara will say that soon. But right here, the Gemara says, well, if it's on a high wall, you can't erase it. But if it's on a high wall, hanging high on the wall, you'll still possibly read other documents. We were always told that on Shabbos we were only allowed to read Jewish books. We weren't allowed to read regular library books. I don't know I think they blamed it on Shtari Hadyotis. I don't know if I don't think it's not the same thing. But wherever we were, they say you can't read secular books, whatever, general type books. Lamanda Amar Shema Yimcha Necha Shema Yikra. Gemara here is assuming that everyone holds of the other opinion. So it says, what are you making a distinction in saying that if it's high on the wall, it's not going to be a problem for Rabbi because you can't reach it to erase it. Rabbi is not going to let you do it anyway because you have another reason. It looks like Shtari Hadyotis. It looks like business documents. You're going to end up doing business documents. There's another problem. Is there really no problem of erasing even though it's high on the wall? Take a look at what it says about a candle. It says, Vatanya leyikra la'araner. It says you can't read to the light of a candle. Why? You might end up adjusting the candle only if there's someone else there that's going to remind you. Otherwise, you can't read to the light of the candle. Va'amar Rabba. Rabbi says, Afilu gavay shtei kaimas, afilu gavay shtei mardayis, afilu asar batim zel gav zel leyikra. Rabbi says that there's a concept of light plug. We don't make distinctions. And therefore, even if it's not possible for you to adjust the candle because the candle is up on the second floor and you're reading down by its light, whatever, or the opposite, you're above, it's very far from you and you can't actually adjust it. So we apply the concept of light plug, that if the rabbi said that you can't do it because there's a concern, it doesn't matter if you're actually able to do it or not. So here too, what are you telling me that you can't reach the guest list to erase? Look at what Rabbi says about the candle. It doesn't matter if you can reach it or not. It's still usher. So you're trying to get enough gamina, a difference between these two opinions. It's not really a difference because each one would agree with the other one. Eily we're looking for a new difference. Eily the kasav akaisa lemitzi. It's the opposite. It's on the wall, but it's low down. According to one that says, well, you're going to erase it. Well, you might erase one. Erase one name. Don't invite him. Right? He's going to eat too much. We don't have enough food. So, according to the one that says that you might read other documents, it's not a problem. Yossi, this is what you might have mentioned. A wall in documents doesn't get confused. This is written on the wall. It sounds like it's not even written on a paper hanging on the wall. It sounds like it's written on the wall. If it's written on the wall, the guest list, so yeah, you might erase it, but you're not going to confuse your business documents that you keep in your drawer with a guest list that's on the wall, probably on the refrigerator. So, okay, that would be a difference. The Gemara asks the same question again. According to the opinion that holds that there's a problem of reading from a guest list because you might end up reading your other documents also. So over here you don't have that issue because the guest list is on the wall. What about erasing? Doesn't he hold that there's a problem that you might erase it also? Why doesn't he have that concern? Let him be concerned that the person might erase a name if he sees he doesn't have enough food. Whoa, talking about that it was carved, it was engraved inside this tablet. And I don't know why you would do that to a guest list, but maybe it was like clay. They would just like break them or something. They could write in it, with those little tools. And so he can't erase it. That's the answer. There's no erasing. It's carved in. But there's going to be a problem according to the opinion that says you might start reading your other documents. where it says, according to the one that was concerned about erasing. So we said over here, he's allowed to read his guest list because he can't erase it. But there's another problem. He should be concerned that he might read his other documents. In other words, since each one holds of the other problem, so why are we saying that this, according to this, it'll be a nafkamina? We're going to have a difference between the two opinions. So maybe he'll say, well, you don't confuse things that are on a tablet. I mean a tablet, like the modern tablet. Things that are on a clay tablet, together with documents. You won't confuse them. Really? It says v'hatanya, mayna adam kama b'fneim, kama mibachutz, v'kama manis asad laniach b'fneim, mechtav shabay al gabi akaisel, abalei mechtav shal gabi tavla pinchas. Person's allowed to decide, allowed to read from who's going to be inside and who's going to be sitting outside, how many portions he has. He's allowed to read it off the wall, but he's not allowed to read it off a tablet, off a clay tablet. Gemara says, "Hey chidami, ilay mediksiv michtav." If it was written, ma'ishnacha ma'ishnahacha. If it was written in ink, so what's the difference where it is? Elalav the chayak. It must be that it was carved out. And we have a distinction here. It was carved, so there's no problem of erasing. That's why you can read it off the wall. But you can't read it off a tablet because the tablet would be similar to other documents, and the wall is not similar to other documents. We're asking that the tablet apparently it is similar to other documents. So therefore, why should you be allowed to read off a tablet the guest list according to what we're saying, similar to other documents, as we see from this brisa, and the person may read other documents. Yeah, Naftali.
Yeah, I'm a little confused. Is this all to say that these documents that are not allowed to use, that they are muksa? Is that the point of this discussion?
I don't know if it's a muksa issue or a uvdin dechal issue. You know, it's a weekday, uvdin dechal, weekday things that you're not allowed to read. Oh, no, it was a decree of writing, I think. I think Shtari there just had to do with writing. It was a concern of Mekach Memkar. I think that's what it says somewhere. Yeah. No. Shami Yikra B'Shtari Hadiyati Shal Mekach Memkar. You might read the documents. I don't know if that means that the problem of Mekach Memkar was also writing. I'm not sure if it's writing or Uvdin Dechal.
If the concern is Mekach Memkar or the concern is Shema Yiktav, it seems that the document will become muksa. If you're not allowed to read it, and the only purpose of this ledger or book is to read, then I assume it would be muksa.
Okay, it could be muksa. Could be muksa, but muksa would only apply to moving it. Or maybe it's on the wall. You're reading it off the wall.
Okay, thank you. This is a little hard for me to understand, this whole discussion. Now, I have a notebook in which I've made notes about halakas of Shabbos for myself. It would never occur to me when I pick it up to look something up that I could write in it or erase it. It must have been a different, I don't know, lifestyle or something.
Right. Right. This is more like a calendar that you have. It's not like a notebook that you took notes from something, you know, a lecture or something, you know, summaries. This is a calendar that you have like like a to-do list. That the way you work with it is with checks and crossing out. So here, this was more of an issue. I guess that would be Rabbi's explanation. Okay, so the Gemara now says, we're talking about that it's back to our original answer. We're looking for a nafkamina, a difference between these two opinions of why you shouldn't use a guest list, why you shouldn't read from a guest list. It's written on the wall and it's hanging high up. You have a question. Rabbi said that you can't use a candle even if it's very high up or even if you're higher because there's a light plug. So he's saying, what are you telling me? That you're not going to erase it because it's so high? There's a light plug. It doesn't matter if you're able to erase it. So the Gemara says the Rabbi Tanai. Well, not everyone holds a Rabbi. Not everyone holds a Rabbi. It's because there's a machlekes if we see that light plug. So what is the machlekes? It says the Tanya was taught in a brayso. Moina the mesar chaves parparais of mipir babalei min aksav rabacha mater. Person can count his guests and his portions, appetizers, by heart, but not from a written document. And Ravacha says you're allowed to. Ravacha mater michtav shal gabi akaisel. When it's written on the wall, where it says hechi dami, what's the case that it's written on the wall? Eily mediksiv mitata, if it's written low down lecha shemiyemche, maybe it's going to erase it. Why are you allowed to read it? Elalav the kasel midli must be high up. Shmamina the Rabba tanaihi shmamina. We see that not everyone holds of Rabba, which was Ravacha. He argues with Rabba and he holds that you're allowed to. So that would fit with our Mishnah that we have an early opinion that doesn't agree with Rabba. So Rabba was following one of the Tanaim, the Tanakama. But our Mishnah can follow Ravacha. Now it says, Vahani Tanai, Kani Tanai. And this machlekes is the same like another machlekes. The Tanya was taught in a brayso. In Rayin B'mara B'Shabbos, you're not allowed to look in a mirror on Shabbos. What's the problem with a mirror? The problem is that you may see a hair that you don't like and you'll cut it off, pull it out. And on Shabbos, you can't cut your hair. So you're not supposed to look in a mirror. That's Tanakama. Reb Meir Mater B'Mara Kvo B'Kaisel. Reb Meir says you're allowed to look in a mirror that's attached to the wall. Maishna, he says a raya against the Bechayim. Someone held that men are not allowed to look into a mirror anyway. So that's like a woman's garment. Women's things, men shouldn't be using mirrors. So, yeah, they didn't check the tefillin. I don't know, they would have to ask someone else if the tefillin are straight. So, in the Chassidish yeshivas, there's no mirrors in the bathroom or anything. So Maishna, we have a mirror in the shul, in the bathroom by the sinks. There's a mirror there. So it must be Reb Meir's opinion. Reb Meir Matamara Maishna Kavod B'Kaisel. What's the difference if it's attached to the wall? The Adahachi Vachi Midka. When you're going to get a scissors, look, you're gonna remember it's Shabbos. I can't go to get a scissors to cut this hair or whatever. So you'll remember that it's Shabbos. But even if it's not attached to the wall, you still have to go get a scissors. What are you going to do? You're going to walk with the mirror, but while you're walking, you'll finally it'll dawn on you that it's Shabbos. There's a delay in between looking in the mirror and cutting the hair. So during that time, you'll remember. The Gemara says, here we're dealing with that the mirror itself is metal. And because it's a metal mirror, you can use the mirror to cut the hair. It's a multi-purpose mirror. They have to add that to those like Swiss Army knives that have like everything on it. You can put a mirror on it. So, because Rav Nachman Amar Rabbi Baravua, Rav Nachman Amar Rabbi Baravua, why are you not allowed to use a metal mirror? Because a person can remove a hair that's hanging. So, what do we see? That there is an opinion that holds that even if it's not possible to use it to cut a hair because it's attached to the wall, it's still usher. And there's another opinion that says no, because you can't use it, you won't end up doing the malacha with this, so then it's mutter. That means that the second opinion, which is the opinion of Reb Meir, he holds that you don't say loy plug. He would go with Rabacha's opinion, not like Rabbi. And he would say that if there's a candle that's high up, that you're not going to adjust it, you would be allowed to reach from that candle, as opposed to the other opinion that says it doesn't matter. Tana Rabbanan, this was taught, the rabbis taught in the Braisa. Ksav ha'malech tachas hatzura. Apparently they had museums back then. They have a picture, and under the picture it says what it was. Assume like the Greeks had these obelisks or whatever, these things that where they would write something in tribute to whatever. They would have designs, decorations, and under it would say something. The tachas hadiyeknos are under these statues. Diyeknos are these molded images. Also the kreise b'Shabbos. You're not allowed to read those titles on Shabbos. And you can't even look at the images even in the weekday. Should not go after other gods. Alilim are false gods. My Talmud, where does it say? What is that? What do you get from that statement? Rashi learns this, that don't make up your own gods in your mind, that what this, we'll make an image like that. So now Elilim, Rashi says, we're going to change the aleph to a ches. And Chalilim. Chalilim means you're hollow, which means your heart. So don't turn toward gods that were made up in your heart, that were made up in, in your imagination. The Goinim have a very nice pshat. They learn, Al tifnu el midaitchem. Don't take God out of your mind. It means you can't look at anything else. That's not any other sort of God's idol type thing. Okay, going to learn what's going on over here. We said that you're allowed to do a lottery with the children, but it's supposed to be the same size. My time. What's the reason? I'm sorry, I skipped the line. In with your family, yes. But you're not allowed to make a lottery with anyone else. There's a problem with the shul children's programs. It's a problem of making lotteries. We'll see over here what this is referring to. My time, what's the reason? Could Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, like Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, Dam Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, B'nei Chabura, Ma'pidim Zel Zeh. If there's some people, a group, that are very particular with each other. Sometimes people are traveling together, whatever. So they don't keep a calculation exactly. You paid for last time, I paid for this time. They don't have it all worked out. Everyone pays. They're friends. They're just they're not makbid. They're mevater on things. At the end, if there's a big difference, they'll ask for something. But otherwise, it's all fine. Other times, they're makbid on every penny. Every single place that they go is split exactly. So B'nei Chabura that are makbid on one on another, so there's a problem when it comes to Shabbos and Yom Tov. They violate Mishum Midah, Mishum Mishkan, Mishum Minyan, Mishum Lavan Aparim B'Yom Tov. they're doing measuring, weights, counting, which is a problem, and they're also borrowing. We said there's a problem to borrow on Shabbos Yom Tov. If you use the term loive, not mashal, if you use the term loive, that's a problem because it's a 30-day loan and you might end up writing. So they're violating all of these things. Kedivrei Beis Hillel af mishum ribis. It's also an issue of ribis, of interest. What's the problem of interest? We learned yesterday that there's a problem called sa v'sa, that the item that you got is translated into a value, and when you pay it back, because at the next stop, the next person pays for it, and he says, "Well, you paid last time for the sandwiches. Now you pay. Now you pay. Could be the price changed." Yeah, Daniel mentioned to me that there's a way of doing the true value of something is based on the McDonald's burger. That's the buying power, the currency. I think he sent me something about this. So if that's the case, so the next time he says you paid for that, now I pay for this, and like that. It turned out that the price could have changed, and you think you're paying back the same thing, and it turned out that the value was different. So that's interest, because they're makbid on it. They're particular to get paid back. Okay, what's coming out over here is that the reason why you can't have different sized pieces, I'm sorry, the reason why you can't do this, these lotteries or exchanges, you take this piece or whatever with other people, you can only do it with the family, is because there's a problem of ribis. There's a problem of you take this instead of that, and it could be that the prices are different. Or it could be that there's other issues here of counting and measuring, all of those issues. Umar says, 1 second. You brought up some very good issues, but you didn't resolve the problem. How does that help? What about the family? With the kids, there's no problem. It's only a problem with other people. There's the same issue. You have the problem of ribis. You have the other problems. Umar says, no, no, we have an answer for that. It's the family doesn't have a problem of ribis. Why? You're allowed to lend to the family, to the children, with interest, to show them how bad it is. Now, the reason why is because it's really just like a monopoly game. It doesn't, money comes from it comes from the father. So the father gives the kids money and says, pay me back. But if you don't pay me back, you have to pay me back. Or, they make up, what time or whatever. So the father has to give them more money to pay him back because of the interest. So the father's the one that's paying it all. It's all really from one pocket to another. But the child is recognizing that what happens, how interest works. I would imagine this more like in the lottery, talking about he's going to get this piece, he's going to get that piece, sort of teaching him how to lose. You don't always get the best.
Learning about interest and all those stuff on Shabbos, of course, is also not okay. Just to teach him just how it feels like. That's probably also not Shabbos.
Yeah, that's interesting. The Gemara's that's a problem, Yossi. That's a difficulty with this Gemara, because we started off discussing that this is an issue on Shabbos, and we're turning this into a regular ribis issue that has nothing to do with Shabbos.
Well, ribis is
that's a good point.
You can do ribis on Shabbos also.
I understand, but you don't have to put that in Masechta Shabbos.
Right.
Right. Right. An interesting point in this Gemara where it seems to like turn away from the Shabbos issue. The Gemara now says, so why did the Mishnah say, if there's no problem of interest, there's no problem of these things, why is there an issue of if it's a large piece or a small piece? If it's all coming from the father, there shouldn't be any problem. The Gemara says, you're right, enachanami. You're right. We have to amend the Mishnah. We have to read it like this. You can give to the children, you can make a lottery. Someone's going to get a big piece, someone's going to get a small piece, pick a number, and this, and you're allowed to do that. My timer, like Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Rav, that we said that it's all coming from the same place. There's no problem of interest. In Banavim B'nei Beisai in Machirim Lai, but not with anyone else. My time, Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel, like Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, which was Mana Gedoyla Kneged Mana Ketana Af B'chol La'achir Masar My time Mishum Kuvya. Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel said that there's a problem of mido mishkal, of measuring, and all of this, people that are makbid on one another, that they're going to end up measuring and lending and borrowing on Yom Tov. So that still exists here. That's with anyone else, you have the problem of Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel, that if people aren't mevater one on another, then you have those issues. With the family itself, you don't have those issues. With other people, you do have the issue. And so why can't you do, and then we add it, that's an issue on Yom Tov. But we have another issue that even during the weekday it's usher. That's because because it's like dice. Dice means gambling. Cube. Rummy cube, right? Kubia is a cube. It's a dice. So what's the problem with gambling? Because according to the Gemara, the person that loses never agreed to this. He was the only reason why the person that loses, why he agreed to this, because he thought he was going to win. It's called asmachta. I agreed to this because I thought I was going to win. So even when you lose, I mean, that was the agreement. But he said he doesn't really pay the money willingly. So there's a problem. Well, there's different opinions about how this works. It's machlekes. If it's just not tikkun olam, it's not the way we want people to have real businesses, productive businesses, not gambling, or does it have to do with actually stealing itself? So, different opinions how that works. Now it says matilin chalashan al chulu. It says that you can make lotteries. Is it pronounced rummy cube? If it, I assume the word comes from kuvia, which means dice. Okay, it says you can make lotteries for the sacrifices, but not for portions. What does that mean exactly? What does it mean, not for portions? Amar Rav Yaakov, Breda Bas Yaakov. Interesting name, no? On the side, it says that his father wasn't a good person. They don't mention his father's name. It's Yaakov, the son of the daughter of Yaakov. Mentions the grandfather. Interesting. What he says, you can't divide up weekday sacrifices on Yom Tov. You can't do lotteries on that. Which is pshita, that's obvious. You would only do what's for the Gemara says, that your nation is like the arguments of the Kayanim, like the argumentative Kayanim. So therefore we should divide up even weekday sacrifices on Yom Tov so that there's no fights. Kamash Malan, that you're not allowed to do that. No, there's different interpretations here. Rashi says that yesterday's sacrifices that were allowed to be eaten for 2 days are still here. So we can divide those up. But that you're not allowed to do on Yom Tov. Why? Because you could have divided it yesterday. You didn't do it yesterday. You're not allowed to do it today. You should have taken care of that before Yom Tov. The Rambam learns this Gemara that we're talking about, that they had other food that they would eat. It wasn't just sacrifices that they had there. There were other food that they could eat it with. They assumed they had ketchup and mustard in the Beis Hamikdash. No? So dividing things up that weren't the sacrifices, that wasn't allowed. Gemara says 1 second. Gemara says that's obvious. It says no, because I could have thought that Kayanim argue a lot, and in order to avoid that, so you're allowed to divide up everything with lotteries to keep away the fights. It says no, you're only allowed to divide on Yom Tov the sacrifices of Yom Tov, the holy sacrifices. Now, where do we get it from that Kayanim fight? Because one of the terms about the people, the Jewish people, is that your nation are argumentative like Kayanim. Okay, that means that they fight. Okay, now it says, Amar Rabbi Yaakov, Breda Bas Yaakov. We have another statement from Rabbi Yaakov, the son of Bas Yaakov. Anyone that his friend is punished because of him, Hashem doesn't let him into his mechitza. Minalan, where do we know this from? Eily mishum d'ksiv. Maybe we know it from the following pasuk. It says, "Vayemer Hashem yifata esacha vayal v'yipol b'ramiskilad." Pasuk says, "Who will convince Achav to go and fight Aram in the plains in the area of Ramiskilad?" Vayemer zebekoi v'zeh amar bekoi. This one says this, and this one says that. The spirit comes in front of Hashem. It says, I will go and seduce or convince Achav to go. They said, how are you going to do it? He says, I'm going to go, and I will be a spirit of falsehood in the mouth of all the prophets. What happened was, Achav is going to go to battle. I think he's together with Yehoshaphat, who was a good king. Yehoshaphat wants him to get a prophet to see that they're going to win. So he asks these prophets. All his prophets all lie. They all tell him that he's, well, I'm not sure if it's lying. It's a little confusing what false prophecy is. All the prophets tell him that you're going to win. Everything is going to be fine. Yehoshaphat says, don't you have another prophet here? He didn't want to call him. It's Michio, the prophet Michio. He doesn't want, anyway, Michio comes and he says, yeah, it's not going to end well. He tells him that, and I think the other prophet comes out. I forgot his name. Yeah. The other prophet tells him, what did God look like when he came to you? That's not what he told me. So we're going to win. Anyway, so what was going on behind the scenes, in what it says in the book of Malachim, is that there was a spirit that went out to the other prophets and convinced them that they should tell Achav that he's going to win the battle. So therefore, he should go to battle. So, my ruach, what was the spirit? Am Rabbi Zaruche shel Navis. This is the spirit of Navis. Wow, so interesting. Navis was just a fellow that happened to have a vineyard next to Achav's palace. And Achav really wanted to have a vegetable garden there. but the problem was it belonged to Navis. So he asked Navis to sell it to him. Navis said, "How could I sell it? It's my inheritance from my family, from my fathers. I can't sell that." So Izevel, Achav's wife, was not a good woman. She makes a false trial against Navis and has Navis killed. And then Achav goes in and takes it and sets up his garden there. And then the prophet, I think it was Achav's days, is Eliyahu or Elisha. The prophet comes to him and says, "You killed. First you kill him, and then you settle in his territory." So he gets okay. So whatever.
Is that where it says Haratzachta Gam Yerashta?
Yeah. That's the pasuk. That's the pasuk. So, what we're saying here is that the spirit of Achav is the one that went to convince the prophets to tell the wrong information to Achav, and therefore Navis ends up getting killed. So no, it says v'gam tuchal tseva sekin, because the pasuk says to the spirit, "Go and do it." When it says "go and do it," it says might say amarav tzem mechitzasi. Get out of my. If you're gonna cause punishment on even an Achav, then don't stay in my mechitza. Gemara says, 1 second. How do you know that's the pshat? Maybe it's just because he's a liar. It has nothing to do with someone else getting punished. Rather, it's from here. Savata kolain mikaved. Say gamata v'herel. So this means you're filled with shame instead of honor. Drink and be like one who's not circumcised. This is in Habakkuk. So the Gemara explains this pasuk. Savata kolay mikaved. You're filled with shame instead of honor, as Nebuchadnezzar. Shesei gamata ve'oral zetzidkia. Drink you and be like one who is uncircumcised. This is referring to Tzidkia, who was the cause of Nebuchadnezzar's punishment that the Gemara is going to explain. It means he's not going to be accepted into the Mechitza of Hashem because he caused Nebuchadnezzar punishment. The Gemara says, Chada, the Gemara doesn't accept this. The Gemara says, Chada, first of all, the Kulak Rabbi Nebuchadnezzar, the whole pasuk is referring to Nebuchadnezzar. And also, V'ay Tzidkia Tzadika, Maya V'leila Mevadle. Tzidkia, the Tzadik, what could he have done? Okay, we're starting to get into a discussion over here. We should probably leave this. There's a whole story that's going to... Rabbi Yehuda said to... Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Rav that when Nebuchadnezzar wanted to do to this righteous man, Gemara is going to say that he stretched his orla. Gemara is going to explain that. So... Rather, we learn from the following pasuk what it is that the source for Rabbi Yaakov, Breit Bas Yaakov. Punishment is not good for the righteous. Also for the righteous. What does it mean not good? Not good means that it's bad. It says, you're not a God that desires wickedness. And evil will not dwell with you. What does that mean? You're righteous, and no evil will dwell with you. That even if a righteous person punishes someone, he's also called evil, and he can't dwell with Hashem. Because of a righteous person, someone else gets punished, he can't dwell with Hashem. Okay. Let's leave it right here.